I feel sorry for people who couldn't make those choices. 30 years old, still cleaning up after other people.
Derek, that was unnecessary. You mentioned her kid.
I know exactly who I'm talking about. The cleaner. Come on then. Show my students what real training looks like and what it doesn't.
All right, just for fun. Her name is Maya Reeves. She trained out of Steelplex Gym in Columbus, Ohio. 5 years, every single day. The promotion called me. 4 days after Calvin died. Maya's slot was open. And
she's been mopping this floor for 8 months. Same mat, same smell, same fluorescent lights humming just slightly too loud on the left side of the room. And nobody in this building knows what her hands are actually for. Her name is Maya Reeves. She is 30 years old, and she is pushing a mop across the far edge of the mat at Ironside MMA in Atlanta, Georgia, and on a Thursday evening in September, and 12 students are sparring behind her, and not one of them has looked at her once in the 40 minutes since she arrived. And that's fine. She stopped needing people to look at her a long time ago. She works the mop in slow, even strokes, left to right, methodical, and the kind of rhythm that belongs to a person who has made peace with the work itself, even if she hasn't entirely made peace with everything that surrounds it. Her hair is pulled back tight, and she's wearing an old gray shirt with the sleeves cut off not as a style choice, just practically, because Atlanta in September doesn't cool down the way people pretend it does when the sun drops. And her track pants have a small bleach stain near the left knee that she stopped noticing sometime around month 3. She is not thinking about the mop. She is thinking about the class behind her, not watching it at all, but listening to it the way you listen to something you've done so many times that your body processes it automatically without asking your mind to get involved. She hears the footwork first, and the tall student in the back row brown belt, elbows carried too wide, weight distribution slightly off-center. He's telegraphing his right cross a full beat early, and every time, his back foot loads before his arm even initiates. It's small enough that most people would miss it. Most instructors would miss it, honestly, unless they were specifically watching for it. Maya caught it 11 minutes ago. She hasn't looked at him since. And then there's the woman in the second row. Compact, technically sound, genuinely fast. But she flinches on the inside. Not visibly, her guard stays up, her chin stays down, her hands move correctly. But the breath timing is wrong, and half a beat behind where it should be. Like she's been hit before in a way she didn't expect, and now some part of her is always waiting for it to happen again. And the young man near the door, maybe 20 years old, he throws a beautiful jab and clean extension, shoulder behind it, good hip rotation. And then he just stands there afterward like he's waiting for the room to acknowledge what he did. The punch lands in space, and he waits. Nobody applauds. He tries again. Maya mops past the wall junction, doesn't break stride, doesn't turn around, and doesn't give any outward indication that she has just read 3 different fighters. In the time it takes most people to notice a room smells like rubber and old sweat, her body knows all of it. That's the thing. It doesn't ask her permission anymore, and 5 years of training will do that to you. Put knowledge so deep in your bones that it keeps working even when you've spent 6 years trying to keep it quiet. And she pushes the mop forward, keeps going. There is a photograph on the wall near the water fountain. Old. The kind of old that shows in color. First photos from the early 80s have a particular way of going gray around the edges while still pretending to be in color. And a group of young men in training gear, standing in what looks like a different gym entirely. Concrete walls. Bare floors. One heavy bag hanging at the left edge of the frame, which tells you the person who set up the shot didn't think about composition, just about the people. And one man stands at the center, broad shoulders, a face that has already decided something. Military posture, not stiff, just settled, the way certain men stand when they've been taught that your spine is the first thing you offer a room. There is a small brass plate underneath, and Maya has walked past this photograph 112 times, and she knows the number because she counted one night, when she was tired in a way that had nothing to do with the physical work and everything to do with the weight of being the only person responsible for your own everything. And she glanced at the brass plate once. The first week, She has not looked at it since. She keeps mopping. Coach Diane Wells is standing near the equipment rack with a clipboard and a cup of coffee she poured 40 minutes ago and has not touched since. And Diane is 44 years old. She has been the assistant coach at Ironside for 7 years, which means she has seen approximately 900 Thursday evening sessions, which means very little surprises her in this room anymore. And she runs the morning conditioning programs. She handles the administrative structure that Derek Koba benefits from without ever directly acknowledging. She has a way of watching a room that looks like not watching, peripheral, quiet, cataloging without appearing to. And right now, she is not watching the class. She is watching Maya's hands. Specifically, she has been watching Maya's hands for 4 months now, and she has been trying to talk herself out of what she keeps seeing, because what she keeps seeing doesn't fit. And it doesn't fit the application form Maya filled out in the parking lot of this building on a Tuesday afternoon 8 months ago. It doesn't fit the 3 questions Arthur Odom asked and the 3 flat, direct answers he got back. And it doesn't fit the woman who shows up at 7:15 every Thursday, does her work, and leaves without making any particular impression on the air around her. But the hands, the calluses don't lie. A cleaning person's calluses are across the palm and base of the fingers, the friction zones of grip work, repetitive and flat. That's what you get from 8 months of mops and squeegees and supply crates. Maya's calluses are at the outer edge of her knuckles, along the ridge of the first 2 fingers, and in the webbing between thumb and forefinger. Diane has trained enough fighters to know exactly what puts calluses there. She sets the clipboard down, picks up the cold coffee, takes a sip, makes a face, and puts it back down, goes back to watching the class. But not really. Derek Cole arrives at 7:52. He is never late. He is also never early in a way that communicates eagerness, and he arrives at the exact moment that makes a room feel like it was waiting for him, which, tonight, it genuinely was. Simone Banks is coming, and that's why Derek has been here since 6 o'clock, and re-chalking a schedule that didn't need it, and rearranging the bench seating that nobody uses formally anyway, and walking the senior students through a warm-up briefing with more ceremony than a Thursday evening usually warrants. And Simone Banks, 32 years old, 2-time regional champion, currently training out of a serious promotion camp in Houston. Guest session tonight. Derek wants the room to look a certain way when she arrives. He crosses to the center of the mat, and the students orient toward him the way students orient toward someone who has spent years making sure that happens. He adjusts his black belt before he starts talking. Small adjustment. The belt was already straight. Good work tonight. Not warm. And graded. He surveys the class with the expression of a man, confirming what he expected to find. We're running through the ground control sequence before our guest gets here. Clean reps. No shortcuts. He begins demonstrating. He's good, and worth saying clearly. Derek Cole is a technically sound instructor who knows the material and can convey it. The problem is not the knowledge, and the problem is what lives around the knowledge, the frame he puts on it, the performance that has grown up around the substance over 17 years until it's sometimes hard to tell which one you're getting, and he adjusts his belt after the demonstration. It was still straight. Maya moves the mop bucket 3 feet to the left. The sound of the wheels on the floor is small, ordinary. Derek doesn't look at her, but something in his posture changes, a fractional tightening, a shift in orientation that says he's aware of her without deciding to be aware of her. I asked you to be finished by 8, he says. His voice doesn't go up, doesn't go hard, and it just states. The way you state something you've already decided is a fact. I'll be out of your way in 10 minutes. Maya doesn't stop mopping, doesn't look up. She says it the same way she says everything flat, direct, no waste. I didn't ask for 10 minutes. Pause. And I asked you to be done by 8. The class is still moving through their drills. Technically. Their feet are still in the right positions, and their hands are still up, and the sparring pattern is continuing. But the room's attention has migrated toward the corner where this exchange is happening, migrated without anyone deciding to let it. A girl near the back of the class drops her eyes to her hands. Maya moves the bucket toward the far wall, out of the immediate working area, and she doesn't say another word. Derek turns back to his class like he adjusted a thermostat. The room exhales without making a sound. He picks up the demonstration exactly where he left it, and Diane writes something on her clipboard. The door opens at 8:05. Simone Banks does not make an entrance, and that needs saying because there are people who walk into rooms and people who enter them, and the difference is internal. One is a person arriving, the other is a person performing arrival. Simone Banks is simply arriving, and she pushes through the door, and then her eyes go to the room immediately, and because that's what fighters do, and they take inventory without appearing to, and exits and obstacles, and the weight distribution of the people in front of them, and all of it processed in the first 4 seconds. And she's wearing a dark blue team jacket, a promotion name across the back in gold, the kind of name that means something in American MMA circuits, the kind that makes people straighten slightly without meaning to. Derek crosses to her, arm extended, and the smile he reserves for people whose opinion he wants. Simone, good to have you. Class, this is Simone Banks, 2-time regional champion, training out of Houston. She's sitting in with us tonight. The class does the thing classes do, impressed, trying not to look too impressed, and Simone nods, easy, professional. Her eyes continue their inventory, across the mat, past the senior students, past Diane with the clipboard, past the water fountain, stop, in the corner, and a woman with a mop, her back turned, working the far edge of the room near the equipment racks. Simone Banks's face does something. Fast and small, the kind of thing you'd miss entirely if you weren't watching for it specifically. Her jaw tightens, a single contraction, and her chin drops maybe half an inch, and what moves across her expression is not surprise, it's something older and heavier than surprise. The kind of thing that lives underneath surprise, that surprise is just the surface layer of, it looks like guilt, not fresh guilt, old guilt, and the kind that has been carried so long it has grooves in it, grooves worn by years of carrying. Maya is working the equipment rack corner. She has her back to the room. She has no idea Simone Banks just walked in, and the sound of the mop against the ringer is oddly clear in the gym's particular quiet. Simone watches her for a moment. Just a moment. Then Diane steps forward to say something in a low voice, and Simone's face slides back into professional neutral the way water finds level. And Maya finishes the corner, turns, and for the space of 2 seconds, maybe 3, her eyes land on Simone Banks, standing at the edge of the mat. Neither of them speaks, and neither of them moves. Maya looks back down at the floor, pushes the mop forward. There is a specific kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. Maya has known this kind of tired for 6 years, and it comes in waves, usually at night, usually when DeAndre is settled and the apartment has gone quiet, and there's no tasks left to complete, and no person left to take care of, and nowhere to put the weight of what you've been carrying all day. And the tired that accumulates not from doing too much, but from being the only person doing anything at all, day after day, with no one to hand it off to. She pushes the mop, and she doesn't think about Simone Banks. She thinks about DeAndre, 19 years old, and first year at Georgia State, studying civil engineering, which Maya still can't entirely process without a particular feeling that sits somewhere between pride and something that doesn't have a clean name. And she raised that boy in a series of 2-bedroom apartments, with secondhand furniture, and a mother who left before he woke up on most mornings and came home after he should have been sleeping on most nights. And she raised him on consistency. On the understanding that things don't get better because you want them to. They get better because you keep showing up for the work even when the work is hard and the return feels distant. He called this morning, 23 minutes, and she knows because she checked the call log after, the way she always does, because 23 minutes from DeAndre Clay means he had something real to say, and so it took it through the ordinary things first. And he talked about a group project, a professor who mispronounced his last name twice in the same lecture, a girl in his calculus section who he mentioned 4 times while also saying specifically that he wasn't interested. She's going to remember that detail. She's smiling slightly, somewhere under the work of the evening, at the memory of how carefully he tried not to mention her a 5th time. Derek's voice fills the room from the center of the mat. You know what separates the people in this room from everyone else? And he has a way of speaking to a class that lands in the room before it lands in your ears. Some quality of resonance that makes the words feel larger than their content. Choices, he lets the words sit. Every single day, you chose to show up, you chose to do the work. And there are people out there who didn't, who don't. He pauses. That's their life. That's fine. People end up where their choices take them, and nobody speaks. He walks a slow arc around the inside of the student circle. Honestly, quieter now. More conversational. The register that signals he's about to say something he's framing as personal. I feel sorry for the people who couldn't make those choices, and 30 years old, still cleaning up after other people. His eyes move, briefly, toward the corner where Maya is working. The movement is casual, designed to look casual. I just hope the people depending on her, the people watching her, growing up watching her, understand what they're seeing. And he lets that sit. Then he moves on, turns back toward the center of the mat, continues his arc. Maya has stopped mopping. Her hand is on the handle. The mop is upright. And she is standing at the far edge of the mat, and her back is to the class, and her jaw is set in a way that takes effort, the specific muscular effort of holding a thing in place that would rather move. Not rage, not yet rage, not exactly. Something more deliberate than rage. The physical effort of choosing, very specifically, and with full awareness, not to respond. And of taking what just happened the way he used the fact of a child watching, used the idea of her son, and of DeAndre, who is 19 years old, and at Georgia State studying engineering, and has never spent a single day of his life being ashamed of his mother, used that as a punchline in a performance that had nothing to do with either of them, and holding it. Just holding it. She breathes in. Once breathes out, picks up the mop. At the edge of the mat, Simone Banks has gone very still, and she is standing with a water bottle in her right hand, and she has not moved in 30 seconds, and her face is doing something careful. The particular stillness of a person who has processed something and is deciding what to do with it. And Diane, at the equipment rack, has the clipboard against her chest now instead of in front of it, and she is not writing anything. Derek is moving through the demonstration again, his body falling into the practiced ease of someone who has done this so many times it lives below conscious thought. He's explaining weight transfer, hip positioning, the geometry of control, and Simone sets the water bottle down. The sound of it is small, deliberate, the kind of small, deliberate sound that cuts through a room when a room is paying attention. Derek. Her voice is not raised and not heated. It has a quality that is harder to describe than volume, the kind of steadiness that comes from someone who has been in enough high-stakes situations to know that raising your voice is what you do when you're not confident in what you're saying. That was unnecessary, and Derek turns. The demonstration pauses. He looks at Simone with the expression of a man recalibrating, deciding how to respond to something he didn't script for. I'm not saying anything wrong. And easy, reasonable. The tone of a man who believes what he said and is surprised anyone would push back. There's nothing wrong with what I said. You mentioned her kid. Silence. You used her child to illustrate a point in front of your class. Simone's voice doesn't change and doesn't get harder. If anything, it gets quieter, and that somehow lands with more weight. You don't know anything about her child. Derek's expression does the careful thing, and Simone. I've been in this sport for 17 years. I know what choices look like. I know what giving up on yourself looks like. And his eyes go briefly toward Maya, and who is still working, and still moving the mop, and still keeping her back to the room, and whatever her story is. You have no idea who you're talking about, Simone says. The words are quiet, final, like a door closing on a room. Derek looks at her. I know exactly who I'm talking about, he says, and his eyes move to Maya. The cleaner, he says. The class is very still now. Not performing stillness, actually still. The difference is something you can feel in a room. The difference between people holding themselves in place and people who have simply stopped. And a student in the back row, the tall one with the brown belt, looks at his hands. He doesn't look up again. And then Derek looks at Maya. And at the corner where she's working. And at the back of the gray shirt with the cut-off sleeves. And he says, come on then. And light sparring, just to show my students what real training looks like and what it doesn't. He's smiling, he is smiling when he says it. The room holds its breath. Maya has stopped mopping again, and she stands there with the handle in her hand, and the room full of people watching the back of her head and the weight of the last 40 minutes, sitting in the air around all of them. Derek's comment about DeAndre, the 8 months of this floor, and the 6 years before that, and the 5 years before that, and in a different gym, and in a different city, and building something that felt like the most permanent thing she had ever built. And she is not angry. That's the strange part. That's the part nobody in this room can quite read. She doesn't look like a woman who is about to prove something. She doesn't look like a woman who has been waiting for this, and she looks like a woman who has been asked a question and is taking it seriously, turning it over, checking it from different angles before she answers. And she looks at Simone. Simone, at the edge of the mat, gives her the smallest nod, not a push, not permission. More like the kind of thing one person says to another when they want them to know that whatever they decide, they won't be alone in it. And Maya sets the mop against the wall, not dropping it, setting it. Carefully, the way you set something down when you know exactly where you put it and you plan to come back. And all right, she says. Her voice is level. Flat, she might be agreeing to hold open a door, just for fun. She steps onto the mat, and the room shifts, not loudly, not with any announcement. And the shift is internal. The quality of the silence changes, becomes denser, the way air changes before weather arrives. 12 students and 2 coaches and 1 guest instructor all feel it at the same time, and nobody says so. Diane puts down the clipboard, and she does it slowly, the way you set something down when your hands need to be free for what comes next, even if what comes next doesn't require your hands at all. Derek settles into his stance, and he moves into it with the ease of a man who has occupied this exact position thousands of times. Comfortable, practiced, and he holds a certain quality of attention that is not quite serious, the kind of attention you give something when you're not concerned about the outcome, but you want to appear engaged. And he looks at Maya the way you look at something you've already decided isn't a real variable in the equation. First mistake. Maya doesn't mirror him. She doesn't take a stance, doesn't raise her hands, doesn't shift her weight forward or back into anything that announces itself. And her arms are loose at her sides. Her feet are slightly wider than her shoulders. Her face is the same faces it has been all night, not blank, exactly, but settled. The face of someone whose internal weather is not visible from outside, and she looks like a woman standing on a floor. That's it, just standing. At the edge of the room, Simone Banks goes very still, and she has crossed her arms, and she is watching with the attention of someone who already knows what's about to happen, and is watching it, the way you watch something you've been waiting a long time to see. And the tall student with the brown belt, the one who telegraphs his right cross, the one Maya clocked 11 minutes into her mopping shift, leans forward on the bench without realizing he's done it. And the compact woman in the second row has her arms folded across her chest, not defensively, more like she's holding something inside her ribcage that's trying to get out. Derek throws the first jab, clean, fast, textbook, and Maya Reeves is not there, and just a small tilt of her upper body. Maybe 4 inches, maybe less. The jab passes her left ear close enough to move the air against it, and before Derek has even reset his shoulder, she is back, and stay exactly where she was, same feet, same hands at her sides, same settled expression, looking at him. The student with the brown belt stops breathing. He doesn't realize he's done it until his body insists. Derek resets, faster, and the room leans in, and without deciding to, and without anyone choosing it, and the way a room leans when something true is happening. And the truth is so clear it doesn't need explaining, and it just needs witnessing. Derek throws the jab at 8:23 p.m. And clean, fast. The shoulder behind it, the weight transferred correctly, the extension full and committed. The kind of jab that has ended sparring sessions and established control and made students nod in appreciation for 17 years. The kind of jab that lands, and it doesn't land on Maya. She isn't there. Not dramatically, no leap, no theatrical roll, no movement that announces itself. Just a small tilt of her upper body, 4 inches, maybe less, and the jab passes her left ear, close enough to move the air next to it, and Maya is already back in position before Derek has pulled his arm back, and standing exactly where she was. Looking at him, nothing on her face. In the back row, the tall student with the brown belt, the one Maya clocked, telegraphing his right cross 11 minutes into her mopping shift, stops breathing. And he doesn't notice he's done it until his lungs remind him, a few seconds later, that breathing is not optional. Derek resets. Faster this time. Jab, cross, hook, his opening combination. And the one he has thrown so many thousands of times that it lives in his body below the level of thought. The jab sets the range. The cross drives through it. The hook comes around the guard that goes up to stop the cross. And 3 strikes, 1 intention. He's thrown it so many times that students have told him it's the smoothest combination they've ever seen up close. Maya slips the jab, rolls under the cross, and the hook finds the space where her head was a half-second ago and keeps going, slightly off balance, and Derek has to step to recover his base. She's back in position, still looking at him, still nothing on her face, and two students near the middle of the room have stopped their quiet side conversation, and they don't remember deciding to stop. The conversation just ended because something more important started. Derek pushes forward, actually working now. A level change, dropping low, reaching for a grip on her lead hip, and a jab-jab cross that varies the rhythm, the second jab shorter than the first to break the pattern. A reach for her lead arm to establish a tie-up and take the fight where he's more comfortable. None of it lands. She's not running. And that's the thing that's making the room so quiet. And she's not retreating, not creating distance, not doing anything that looks like avoidance. She's moving the minimum amount necessary. Just enough. And, like the fight is a language she learned so long ago that she reads it without noticing she's reading it, like the words arrive already translated, like she knows what he's about to say before he opens his mouth. The room doesn't belong to Derek Cole anymore. Nobody says so, and nobody will say so out loud tonight or maybe ever. But something has shifted in the 30 seconds since the first jab, something structural and quiet, and every person in this gym has felt it happen under their feet like a change in the ground. And the compact woman in the second row, the one who flinches internally, the one whose breath timing runs half a beat behind, the one Maya cataloged 14 minutes into her shift, leans forward without deciding to. She's watching Maya's feet, and because she's been training long enough to know that everyone watches the hands, but the feet tell you where someone actually understands themselves to be, and Maya's feet are barely moving. That's the thing that the compact woman will think about later, driving home, sitting at a red light on Hollowell. She'll think about how little Maya moved, how the economy of it was the whole lesson, and how Derek worked, and Maya just wasn't where he reached. Small adjustments. Weight shifts that looked like nothing and were everything. The difference between a person who has been taught to fight and a person who has learned to think inside one. And Diane Wells, at the edge of the mat, has both arms crossed over her chest now, not defensively, more like she is physically holding something in that would otherwise come out as sound. Then Maya decides she's done waiting. There is no announcement to this decision, and no shift in her expression, no gathering of intention, no tell in her body that something has changed internally. One moment she is absorbing, the next moment she isn't. Derek throws a wide right hook and his power shot. The one he uses to close out sparring sessions, when he wants to make a point about what real force feels like in a controlled setting. It's a good punch, heavy, committed, the weight of his whole shoulder behind it. Maya slips inside it, and her left hand redirects his right wrist, not gripping, and not forcing, and just redirecting the way you redirect a door that has too much momentum, and guiding it past rather than stopping it. And her right hip drives into his center, and her leg hooks behind his lead leg, and Derek Cole goes down, clean, no struggle, no drama. The way something heavy falls when its balance is simply removed from underneath it, not pushed, not thrown, just gone. And he hits the mat on his back, and the sound of it travels to every wall in the gym and returns. Maya steps back, doesn't stand over him, doesn't turn to the class, doesn't do anything that performs the moment or asks the room to respond to it, and she steps back and she waits, and her arms loose at her sides, and her expression unchanged, and looking at him with the same settled attention she has had all night. And 31 seconds. The whole exchange took 31 seconds. Derek lies on the mat looking at the ceiling. His chest moves. The fluorescent light above him hums. In the particular silence that has settled over the room, that hum is the loudest thing. Nobody moves. And the tall student with the brown belt sits down on the bench behind him. And he sits slowly, the way your body sits when your legs have made a decision your mind hasn't caught up to yet. The compact woman in the second row has one hand pressed over her mouth, and a young man near the door, the one with the beautiful jab, the one who waits for applause after each punch, is staring at Maya with an expression that has nothing performative left in it. Diane uncrosses her arms, and Simone Banks walks forward, and not theatrically. Not with any quality of arrival or announcement. She walks forward the way you walk toward something you should have walked toward a long time ago, and you have simply finally decided to stop not doing it. She steps onto the mat. She stands beside Maya, And, not in front of her, not slightly behind, beside, equal footing. Two women on a mat in Atlanta on a Thursday night, and one of them has just done something that changed the temperature of the room, and the other one has been waiting 6 years to stand next to her again. And Simone faces the class. When she speaks, there is no performance in her voice, no construction. It is simply a voice saying things that are true, in a room that is ready to receive them. Her name is Maya Reeves. She lets that sit, doesn't fill the space after it, and lets the name land and settle and mean something before anything else is added to it. Her name is Maya Reeves, and she trained out of Steel Plex Gym in Columbus, Ohio, and 5 years. Every morning before her shift at a warehouse on the east side of the city. Every evening after. A student in the back row makes a sound, not a word. The kind of involuntary sound that comes out of a person's when something hits them somewhere they weren't braced. And she was 4 days from her professional debut when her uncle died. Car accident on a Wednesday morning. He owned Steel Plex. He built it over 22 years from nothing, no backing, no investors, no safety net, and just the conviction that the neighborhood needed a place and he was going to build it. Simone's voice is steady, even, the quality of water moving fast and still inside its banks. When he died, there was no one else on the paperwork, and no second name on the loan, no legal transfer in place, no time to establish one. The bank took the building 60 days later. She stops. The room is so quiet that you can hear the ventilation system in the ceiling doing its slow, steady work. And she was pregnant. She had no training facility. She had no warehouse job because the warehouse had closed that same month. Simone looks at the class, not accusingly, and just directly, the way you look at people when you are telling them something they need to know, and you want them to actually know it. She didn't choose this life over fighting. She didn't choose anything. Life chose for her. And then she got up the next morning anyway, and she kept going. And Derek sits up from the mat. He does it slowly. His elbows go to his knees, and he looks at the floor between his feet, and he is very still. He looks like a man who is doing serious work internally and does not have the capacity right now to do anything else at the same time. And then Simone says the thing she has been not saying for 6 years. And she says it the way you say something you've rehearsed without meaning to, and carried so long that the words have worn grooves, not because you planned to say them out loud, but because you've said them to yourself so many times in the car, and in the gym, and in the particular quiet of 3 a.m. when sleep won't come, and that they arrive already formed. And the promotion called me. Her voice doesn't change, doesn't go soft or hard, just stays even. 4 days after Calvin died, Maya's slot was open. They needed someone to fill it fast. Stops, breathes, continues. They called me. I knew what the slot was. I knew whose slot it was. And I took it. A student near the back looks at Simone, then looks away. I won that fight. It was my first regional title, and I went home and I told myself she would bounce back. And a pause. I told myself that a lot. For a long time, her jaw tightens once, then releases, and I never called to find out if it was true. The room holds that, and holds it, the way a room holds something that is too true to respond to immediately, that requires a moment of just sitting with the weight of it before anything else is possible. It wasn't cowardice exactly, Simone says. It was I knew what I'd done, and not technically, not on paper, but I knew, and it was easier to not know how she was doing than to call and find out and have to hold that. She looks at Maya, not asking for anything, just looking. That's what I did, and I'm sorry, not to this room, to her. And Maya has been standing still through all of this. Her arms at her sides, her weight centered. She has been listening with her whole body, the way she listens to everything completely, without the part of your brain that's already formulating a response, running in the background, and just taking it in. Derek gets to his feet from the mat. It takes him a moment. Not because he's injured, because standing up requires intention, and right now his intention is somewhere else, somewhere internal, working through something that isn't finished yet. He stands, and he looks at Maya. Not with the looking he's been doing all night, the looking that passes over someone without actually landing on them. He looks at her the way you look at something when all the filters are gone. And when the frame of authority and performance and 17 years of accumulated professional identity has been temporarily suspended by the specific gravity of realizing you were completely wrong about a room. I didn't know, he says. 2 words. Quiet. Not an apology yet, and just the two words that are the most honest thing he's said since Maya stepped onto the mat. Maya looks at him. I know you didn't. Her voice is calm, completely calm. Not the performed calm of someone suppressing something, and the real calm of someone who has been carrying something for a very long time and has put it down and found floors still solid underneath them. No triumph in it, no edge, no invitation for him to feel better about himself at her expense. And just the truth delivered at its natural temperature. The students begin to move, and quietly without being dismissed, and finding their way to the benches and the edges of the room, the way people move after something large has passed through a space not fleeing, and just redistributing and finding a new relationship with the air. And Derek walks to the water fountain. He stands there for a moment with his back to the room. Diane watches him, and she has the clipboard against her chest, and she is doing the thing she does when she's decided to give someone the space to process without an audience looking at the middle distance, available but not present. After a moment, she crosses the room, passes Simone, pauses, and come find me before you leave, she says, low enough that only Simone hears. And Simone nods. 20 minutes later, they are in Diane's office. It is a small room. One desk with real use in it, not a display desk, a working desk, covered in layered papers and 2 coffee cups and a highlighter with no cap. 2 chairs that don't match, and a filing cabinet that has never closed all the way in 7 years, and Diane has stopped trying. A whiteboard with a session schedule in 3 colors of marker. It smells like the rest of the gym, but less so, and like the smell's trying to behave itself. Diane pours coffee, slides a cup across the desk, sits. Simone takes the cup, holds it with both hands, doesn't drink, and they sit for a moment without talking, and which is a thing Diane is comfortable with, and which Simone, who spends most of her time in environments that fill silence aggressively, finds strange, and gradually, and less strange. And how long did you know her? Diane asks. Since she was 22, and Simone looks at the wall above the filing cabinet. I came to Steelplex the year before she was supposed to debut. She'd been there 4 years already. A pause. She taught me how to think inside a fight, not just get through one. There's a difference. I know there's a difference, and Diane's voice is dry. I've watched Derek teach people to get through fights for 7 years. Simone looks at her. He's technically sound, Diane says, in the tone of someone giving credit, where it is precisely due and no further. And he knows the material. He can convey it. She picks up her own cup. He just never had someone tell him his body already knew the answer. He had someone tell him the opposite. Simone is still. What do you mean? Diane drinks her coffee and sets the cup down with the particular precision of someone choosing how much to say. Derek Cole grew up training in Charlotte. Good gym, well-run program. A coach named Holloway, who had a real reputation in the regional circuit. And she looks at the whiteboard without really looking at it. Derek trained there 2 years. He was good, genuinely good, not exceptional, but real. A beat. Holloway cut him, said it directly, you're good, not good enough to build a program around. Simone doesn't say anything, and Derek came back to Atlanta, started teaching. And somewhere in the years between that door closing and this one opening, and he developed this. Diane pauses, and looking for the right word, and not settling for the approximate one. And this need, for the room to know he's the one who made it, and for there to be a clear hierarchy with him at the top of it, and confirmed regularly, and out loud, and in front of people. And she looks at Simone directly, not because he's a bad person, because he's a frightened one, and frightened people do a lot of things that look like strength from the outside. Simone turns her cup in her hands. That doesn't make what he said okay, she says. And no, Diane's voice is flat and unambiguous. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't touch what he said about her son. That was wrong. Full stop. She holds Simone's gaze. But you ask me why he does it. That's why. And he's been standing on a trapdoor for 17 years, and he needs everyone looking up. A silence settles between them. Anne's outside the office, and the gym is doing its post-session quiet equipment being returned, and a muffled conversation near the entrance, and the sound of the door opening and closing as students leave. And the ordinary sounds of a place returning to itself after people have been in it. I should have called her, Simone says. Not asking for a response, just saying it into the room. I know that. I've known it for a long time. She sets the cup down. And when I took that slot, I made myself a story, that she'd be fine, and that she was strong enough to come back from it. that this was a setback, not a stop, that in a year I'd run into her at a regional event, and she'd have found another gym and another trainer, and it would all have. She stops, and I need her to be fine, because if she wasn't fine, then I had to hold what I'd actually done. Diane is quiet. How is she now? Simone asks. Diane looks at her for a moment. She's been okay, she says. That's the thing people keep reading wrong. And they see where she is, and they think they know what it means about her. She picks up the clipboard, sets it back down. 8 months she's been here. And every Thursday, on time every time. Doesn't miss anything, does the work completely, goes home, she pauses. And I watched her hands for 4 months before I let myself admit what I was seeing. The calluses, Simone says. The calluses. Diane nods once. And you can teach a person to clean a floor. You cannot give them that kind of hand. Simone is quiet for a moment. Her son, she says. Deondra, he's 19. Georgia State, engineering. Diane raises an eyebrow. She told me once, early on. Simone's voice has something in it that isn't quite softness. Something more precise than softness. She didn't say it like something sad. She said it like a plan. And like a thing already in progress, that just needed her to keep showing up for it. She looks at the wall. I thought about that for a long time after. The way she talked about him. Like he was the proof of something. And he is, Diane says simply. Then Arthur is going to want to talk to her. Simone looks up. Arthur Odom, this building. Diane stands, moves to the small window that looks out over the back alley, stands with her arms crossed. He knew Calvin, and they trained together in Columbus a long time ago. He's known who Maya was since the second week she worked here. He connected the name. Simone stares at her. He's been watching her for 8 months, Diane says, and waiting to see something specific. She turns from the window. Tonight he saw it. Not the sparring. He wasn't here for that. She pauses, but he'll hear about it. He hears about everything that happens in this building. And tomorrow morning he's going to leave her a note. And what kind of note? The kind that changes things, Diane says. Back in the main gym, the room has settled into something that isn't quite the normal post-session atmosphere. And the normal post-session atmosphere at Ironside on Thursday nights has a particular quality, relaxed and slightly loud. And people moving toward the door with their bags already half-zipped, and the easy noise of a group that has done something physical together and is now dispersing back into their separate lives. And it has a rhythm. Tonight doesn't have that rhythm. Tonight has something quieter in it, more considered, and people are moving, yes, and picking up bags, yes, and heading toward the door, but there is a quality to how they're doing it, and a kind of care in the movement. Like everyone in the room has had something slightly rearranged inside them, and they're moving around it without yet knowing its full dimensions. And the tall student with the brown belt, the one Maya clocked telegraphing his cross, the one who sat down on the bench when Derek went down, lingers near the equipment rack. He's holding his bag but not leaving. He's looking at the mat, not at Maya, not at Derek, and at the mat itself, at the specific section of it, where something happened tonight that he doesn't have words for yet, but that he knows meant something. He'll have words for it later. And he'll try to explain it to his girlfriend at home, and she'll say that sounds intense, and he'll say, yeah, it was, but that won't be quite right, and he won't know how to say what is right until a few weeks from now, when he's in the middle of a sparring session, and he hears the timing of his own breath, and thinks about the woman in the gray shirt, and the way she moved the minimum necessary amount that he couldn't understand tonight, and he'll understand something then that he couldn't understand tonight. But tonight he just stands there, holding his bag, looking at the mat. Derek Cole is at the water fountain. He's been there for several minutes, and he drank some water, and then he stopped drinking, and he's just standing there, his back to the room, his hand on the edge of the fountain, not performing anything, not presenting anything for the room to see or evaluate, just standing, thinking. And Maya is gathering her cleaning supplies from the corner where she left them at the start of the session, and she picks up the bucket, checks that the cleaning bottles are in it. She does this with the same methodical attention. She does everything completely, without shortcuts, without the part of her brain that's already somewhere else running the show. She is present, and she has always been good at being present. It's one of the things Calvin noticed first, and the third Saturday morning at Steelplex, and after she'd been late twice and early once and on time once, and was finally consistently early, and he stopped a drill and looked at her and said, "And you're here." And he didn't explain what he meant. She understood what he meant. A lot of people come to training and leave most of themselves outside. She came to training and brought everything. She still does, even mopping, even this. Derek turns from the water fountain. He walks toward her. He moves differently than he moved an hour ago. Something in the construction of his posture has changed, not collapsed, not diminished, but simplified. Like a thing that was being held at a deliberate angle, has been allowed to find its natural position. And he walks toward her, and he is simply a man walking across a gym floor, and nothing is performing anything. He stops a few feet from her. She looks at him. He looks at her. No buffers between them now, and no frame of authority, no 17 years of professional identity, arranged between his face and whatever is actually on it. Just a man who went down on his own mat and got back up and is now standing in front of the person who put him there. And I'm sorry, he says. Just that, no preamble, no clause that softens it by redirecting it back toward himself. No explanation that turns into a justification. 4 words, unadorned, carrying only what they carry. Maya looks at him for a moment. She is thinking about and she is thinking about the specific words Derek used, standing in the middle of his own mat, about people depending on her and watching her and growing up watching her. And she is thinking about the 19 years she has spent, making sure DeAndre understands that everything she does, every shift, every floor, every morning she left before he woke up, and every night she came home after he should have been sleeping is not failure. And it is the shape that love takes when circumstances are what they are, and you refuse to stop anyway. She is thinking about what it means to have someone reduce that to a punchline. And she is thinking about what it means to be the kind of person who can hear an apology and know what to do with it. My son doesn't need your sympathy, she says. Her voice is level. It carries no performance, no anger that wants to be witnessed, no grace that wants to be noted. And it is simply her voice saying what is true. He has me. Every shift, every floor I mop, every morning I leave before he wakes up, and every night I come home after he should be sleeping. She holds Derek's gaze without hardness in it, just directness. And that is not what failure looks like. That is what his mother looks like. And he knows the difference. Derek doesn't flinch, doesn't look away. He takes it in the way it deserves to be taken in. And so don't bring him into something you don't understand, Maya says. A pause. You're right, Derek's voice is quiet. I'm sorry. Not loudly. Not as a performance of contrition. And just 4 words delivered at the natural weight of a man who means them and is not asking for anything in return for meaning them. Maya nods. Once, she picks up the cleaning bucket and walks toward the supply closet. The remaining students filter toward the door, and the tall one with the brown belt goes last. And as he passes the section of mat where everything happened, he slows for just a moment, and then he keeps going. The door swings shut behind him. Simone comes out of the office. She crosses the gym, and when she reaches Maya at the supply closet door, she stops. They are alone in the main room now. Derek has gone back toward his office. Diane has stayed in hers, and the students have all left. It is just the 2 of them, and the hum of the lights, and the particular quiet that a gym holds after a session not empty, exactly, and more like resting. They have not spoken directly to each other tonight. Not one word exchanged in the same space they once shared for 5 years. 5 years of mornings and evenings, and the particular closeness that comes from building something hard together. And then there is a weight to that, an awareness in both of them of all the conversations that got skipped over, all the years of silence that took up space where something else should have been. 6 years is a long time to leave a silence unaddressed. And I should have called you, Simone says, not restating what she said to the class. This is different. That was a public accounting. This is the private one, said to the actual person, without the room as buffer. I know I said it in there. She meets Maya's eyes directly, but I needed to say it to you too. Not to the room, to you. Maya looks at her. There is a long moment. How'd that fight go? And Maya says. Simone blinks. What fight? The debut, my slot. Maya's voice sharp, genuinely asking, how did it go? Simone is still for a moment. 3rd round, TKO. Corner stopped it. She watches Maya's face. I won. Maya nods. Slowly. And Calvin would have broken down every second of that fight with you, she says. Made you go through the whole tape. Told you exactly what you should have done differently in round 2. And she pauses. And then he would have told you it was good work. Simone exhales. It comes out longer than she expected. He would have had notes on my footwork before he said anything else, she says. Maya almost smiles, not quite, but almost. He always did, she says. And they stand there for a moment. Two women in a quiet gym at the end of a Thursday that neither of them expected to go the way it went. And the history between them is present the years of training together, and the loss of Calvin, and the slot that changed hands, and the 6 years of silence, all of it present, and not resolved exactly, and not erased, and but present in a way that can be looked at now, without either of them having to look away. And Deandra, Simone says, he's good, he's good. The quality in Maya's voice when she says it is the quality of something that has been built and is holding. And 19. Georgia State, engineering. She stops. He didn't get to know Calvin. He was too young when it happened. But he knows who he was. A pause. I made sure of that. I know, Maya says. And she doesn't need the sentence finished. She's been finishing it herself for 6 years in the quiet of her apartment after DeAndre went to sleep. At the breakfast table on Sunday mornings when she looks at her son and thinks about the man who will never meet him, and in the moments when DeAndre does something, a gesture, a particular way of setting his jaw, when he's thinking hard about something that looks so much like her uncle, it takes her breath briefly sideways. She knows. He'd be proud of you, Simone says. Quietly, without ornamentation. And Maya is quiet for a moment. I know he would, she says. And it is not arrogant. And it is the specific piece of a woman who has been the only person holding her own truth for long enough that she has learned to hold it steadily, without external confirmation, and who no longer needs confirmation to know what's true. And she picks up the mop from where she left it against the wall, turns back to the supply closet. Same time next week? Simone asks. I'm scheduled for another guest session. Maya looks at her over her shoulder. I'll be here, she says. She will be. And she has been here every Thursday for 8 months. She will be here next Thursday. And somewhere in the difference between those two facts, between the 8 months that were one thing and the Thursday that is coming that will be another, something has quietly, irrevocably changed. And Maya Reeves puts the mop away, closes the supply closet door, and walks through the empty gym toward the exit, and past the mat, and past the water fountain, and past the photograph on the wall with the brass plate underneath that she has walked past 112 times without stopping. And she doesn't stop tonight either, but she slows for just a moment. Her eyes go to the photograph, to the man at the center of it, broad shoulders, a face that has already decided something, and the posture she knows better than any other posture in her life. She looks at it for 3 seconds, then she keeps walking. The door swings shut behind her. And outside Atlanta is doing what Atlanta does, noise and light, and the ongoing motion of a city that doesn't stop for anything. Cars on Hollowell, music from somewhere up the block, and the warm air that sits and waits because Atlanta in September doesn't cool down just because the sun went down. And Maya Reeves walks to her car, gets in, sits for a moment in the quiet of it. Then she drives home to her son. The note is handwritten. That's the first thing Maya notices when she opens the supply closet Friday morning. Not a text, not a printed memo, and an actual piece of paper, folded once, set on top of the cleaning supply crate, where she keeps her schedule for the week. The handwriting is deliberate, and the kind that belongs to someone who learned to write before keyboards, existed, and never lost the habit of taking care with letters, of treating the act of writing as something that deserved attention. And come by the office before you leave today. A. Odom. Maya reads it once, reads it again, folds it back along the original crease and puts it in her pocket. She gets the mop. She starts her shift. And she thinks about the note for approximately 4 minutes, and then she puts it somewhere internal and gets on with the work. Because the work is there, and it needs doing, and thinking about a conversation that hasn't happened yet is not a productive use of the hours between now and when it does. And this is something Calvin taught her without meaning to, and not as a lesson, and not as instruction, and just by example by the way he moved through a day, and dealing with what was in front of him without spending energy on what wasn't there yet. And you'll know what you need to know when you need to know it, he said once, when she was 19 and anxious about a training assessment. Until then, train. She trains, she mops, and she does the supply inventory, and the equipment check, and the mat cleaning with the same complete attention she gives everything. Not because anyone is watching, but because that's the only way she knows how to work, and completely or not at all. Calvin's influence, reaching forward through time. At 4:37, she knocks on Arthur Odom's office door. "Come in. She's been in this office once before, 8 months ago, to sign the employment forms. And she sat across the desk from a man she didn't know yet, and answered his 3 questions, and signed where he pointed and left. She was efficient about it. She needed the job, and she didn't want to waste his time or hers performing anything beyond what the situation required. And she didn't look at the walls then. She looks at them now. The office is small, real small, not performed small, and a desk with work, actually on it, layers of paper, 2 coffee cups at different stages of empty, a highlighter without its cap that has been sitting there long enough to have dried out and been replaced and dried out again, 2 chairs that don't match, and a filing cabinet with a drawer that doesn't close all the way. A window that looks out over the back alley, where there is nothing scenic, just concrete and a dumpster and the back wall of the laundromat next door, and it on the wall behind the desk a photograph. Maya has been in this building for 8 months, and she has walked past the photograph in the hallway near the water fountain 112 times, and she has walked past whatever else is in this building. In all the ways a person walks past, things they haven't yet been given a reason to look at. She looks now, and the photograph behind Arthur's desk is different from the one in the hallway, and smaller. Older, the color has faded further toward gray, and a group of young men in training gear, and maybe 8 of them, and standing in a gym that is barely a gym, concrete walls, and a strip of rubber mat on the floor, and 2 heavy bags and a skip rope hanging from a rafter, and the kind of place that has no budget for anything except the essential things, and has decided that the essential things are enough. One man stands slightly left of center, and Maya has to look twice, because the first time she sees a man she doesn't know, and the second time she sees the posture. She sees the way the shoulders are set, and she sees the particular angle of the jaw, and the specific quality of the expression, not serious, exactly, but decided, and like a man who has already done the internal work, and has arrived at a position, and is simply standing in it, and she knows that posture. She grew up watching that posture, and she knows it better than she knows her own. Arthur Odom pours 2 cups of coffee from a press on the corner of the desk. He slides one across to her without asking if she wants it. He sits. He picks up his own cup. He looks at the photograph. "Columbus," he said, and 1981. "I was 20 years old. He was 22. He drinks, sets the cup down. We trained at a place called Eastbrook on the north side, and not much of a gym, as you can see, but it was ours." He pauses. "Calvin Reeves was the finest natural athlete I have ever trained alongside, and I have been in and around this sport for 43 years, so that is not a small statement." Maya is standing just inside the door, and she has not sat yet. She is looking at the photograph. "Sit down," Arthur says, not unkindly, just directly. She sits. "I lost track of him in the late 80s, Arthur continues, "and life moves. He went back south. I stayed in Columbus another 10 years, then came here. And I heard about Steelplex, through the circuit, heard he'd built something real on the east side, that it was the kind of gym that produced actual fighters, because it had no option except to be honest." He looks at his cup. "When he died, I heard about that too, and put a note in my records. Calvin Reeves, November, I-71. Kept it because I don't know why exactly, and you keep some things." He looks at Maya directly. 8 months ago, a woman named Maya Reeves applied for the cleaning position. He holds her gaze. She answered my 3 interview questions without explaining herself once, without prefacing anything, and without performing any version of herself designed to make me feel better about hiring her. He pauses. Calvin used to answer questions that way, like the words cost him something real, and he'd already decided they were worth the price. And Maya looks at him. "I hired you because of how you answered those questions," he says, "not because of Calvin. I made that connection in the 2nd week, after you were already on staff." He sets down his cup. "By then, I'd already decided you were right for the job, and the connection was separate." "What job?" Maya says, because she knows what job she has. She has been doing it for 8 months, and she understands in the way she has always understood things slightly before they are explained to her, that the job he is referring to is not the one with the mop, and Arthur looks at her steadily. "I have 8 women registered for a beginner conditioning and self-defense course. They start in 4 weeks, ages 20 through 41. 2 of them have been in a gym before. The other 6 haven't." He folds his hands on the desk. And I need someone who can walk into a room and make a person understand that their body is something they can trust. Maya is still. Calvin's phrase, she says. He said it to me once, and 1,982, and before a session I didn't want to do, and a day I was ready to quit the whole thing. And Arthur's voice carries the quality of a man recalling something from a long distance, but with perfect clarity. I never forgot it. It turned out to be the most useful thing anyone ever said to me about training, or about most other things. He looks at her, and I figured if it came from him and you came from him, it was probably still in you somewhere. And outside the window, the alley is quiet. A car passes on the street beyond. Somewhere in the building, the HVAC system makes a small adjustment and the air moves slightly. Derek will have concerns, Arthur says. I want you to know that before you give me an answer. And he's going to raise the certification requirements, and he won't be wrong to raise them. They exist, and they apply, and I'm not going to ask you to go around them. And he pauses. But he'll have other concerns, too. The kind that are harder to put in a formal objection. I know, Maya says, you'll need to get your level 1 coaching certification before the class begins. That gives you 4 weeks. Maya looks at him. 4 weeks is not a long time. And 4 weeks is also not nothing for a woman who has been managing impossible timelines since she was 24 years old. I understand, she says. And do you want time to think about it? Arthur asks. Maya looks at the photograph one more time. Calvin at 20 and standing in a gym that would be gone within 15 years, before he rebuilt it somewhere else. Before he built Steelplex from the same nothing he'd always had available to him and made it into something that outlasted its own building, even if it didn't outlast the paperwork. And building something anyway. Because you love the thing, and loving it means building it wherever you stand long enough. And no, Maya says. No, you don't want to think about it? No, I don't need to. Arthur looks at her for a moment, then he nods. Once, that is the whole conversation. She drives home that evening thinking about 4 weeks, about what 4 weeks contains and what it requires. And she is not panicking. Panic has never been a particularly useful tool, and she stopped keeping it in her kit a long time ago. She is thinking practically, and the Level 1 certification exam covers 6 areas, and anatomy and injury prevention, and session planning and curriculum structure, and duty of care and safeguarding, and psychological principles of coaching, and practical demonstration of fundamental techniques, and an assessment of participant needs. And she knows the practical component. She has known it for 13 years, the theoretical components she will need to study. She calculates, and work shifts, and Deandra's schedule, and the 2 hours per night she will not compromise on for sleep, because she has learned, and in the years of running on nothing, and that the bottom falls out when you stop sleeping, and the bottom falling out is expensive in ways that take longer to fix than the time you saved. And she can do this. She lays out the schedule in her head on the drive home. Library on weekday mornings before her shift, study on her phone during the lunch break. Evenings after work, 2 hours at the kitchen table, and practical review in the apartment's small, clear space between the couch and the kitchen counter, moving through the required sequences slowly, thinking them from the inside out the way Calvin taught her to think about everything. She parks outside the apartment and sits in the car for a moment. She thinks about Calvin, about what he would say if she told him she was about to spend 4 weeks studying for a test to prove she could teach something she has known in her body for over a decade. He would have something dry to say about that, and something that would make her laugh and make the thing feel smaller and more manageable. He had a gift for that, for reducing the size of obstacles without dismissing the reality of them, and she misses him in the specific way she always misses him. Not acutely, not with fresh pain, but with the steady low awareness of someone important, being permanently absent from a space they should occupy. The Calvin-shaped gap in the room. She gets out of the car, goes inside, and makes dinner. She doesn't tell Deandra yet. Not because she's hiding it. Because she has learned, over the years of parenting him alone, the difference between sharing something and burdening someone with an uncertainty. There's something to tell when the thing is real and confirmed and ready to be shared, she will tell him. Until then, it belongs to her. She studies at the kitchen table until 11. She does this for 4 weeks. She doesn't tell anyone at Ironside she is studying. And she doesn't mention it to Simone, who texts twice that week and once the week after. She doesn't mention it to Diane, who passes her in the corridor on Wednesday evenings, with a look that says more than most conversations, but doesn't require a response. And she doesn't perform the studying. She just does it. And the same way she has done everything that mattered for the last 6 years, without an audience, without external confirmation that it's the right thing or the possible thing, without anyone needing to witness it for it to be real. And the certification result arrives on a Friday afternoon. She is mopping the back corridor when her phone buzzes in her pocket. She takes it out, reads the notification, reads it again, and puts the phone back in her pocket. Finishes the corridor. Does the equipment wipe down? Does the mat cleaning in the main room? At 4:15, she goes to the back office. She has stopped at the library on Hollowell that morning, and she has a printed copy of the certification document in a flat envelope she has been carrying in the outer pocket of her bag all day. She knocks on Derek's door. Come in. She opens the door. She crosses to the desk, and she takes the envelope out of her bag, and she sets the document on the desk in front of him. She does not explain it. She does not contextualize it. The document says what it says, and she has decided to let it say it. Derek looks down at it. He is quiet for a moment, and he looks up at Maya. She holds his gaze. She has thought about this moment. Not obsessively, not with anxiety, but with the practical clarity of someone who knows that some moments require preparation, and that preparation is not the same as performance. And she has thought about what needs to be said and what doesn't need to be said, and where the line is. You don't have to like me, she says. Her voice is level. You just have to respect the work. Derek looks at the document again. He looks at it for long enough that the silence becomes its own kind of communication, not hostile, not evasive, but the silence of a man doing something internally that requires the external to pause. And then he opens the desk drawer, takes out a pen, signs the authorization form that has been sitting in the drawer since Arthur put it there 2 weeks ago, sets the pen down. That is it. No speech, no extended moment, no declaration of anything, and just a signature on a form, and the form meaning what it means, and both of them in the room knowing what it means without either of them needing to say it out loud. This is how Derek Cole begins to change, and not through the large public moment on the mat that was the crack in the surface, the place where the pressure finally found an exit. And the actual change happens here, in a small office on a Friday afternoon, in the quiet act of signing his name to something he could have blocked and chose not to. People don't change the way stories sometimes suggest they do, and they don't transform in a single dramatic instant and emerge permanently different, and they change in small subsequent choices, and each one slightly harder or slightly easier than the last, and accumulating over time into something that looks, and from a distance, and like a different person. And the signature is the first small choice. Maya picks up the authorization form, folds it once, puts it in her bag. Thank you, she says. She means it, not effusively, not warmly in a way that tries to make the moment more than it is. And she means it simply, in the plain way that things are meant when they're true. And that's the only reason they're being said. She walks out. Friday evening, she calls DeAndre. He picks up on the second ring, which means he was near his phone, which means he was either studying or not studying, and either way she's glad he answered. And hey, his voice has the particular ease of a Friday evening when the week's weight has dropped. Hey, she is sitting on the edge of her bed. The apartment is quiet around her. I have something I'm going to be doing, starting Monday, at the gym. He is quiet for a moment, and she can hear him thinking the quality of his silence that she has known and since, before he was old enough to have a silence with a quality to it. And, are you going to fight? He asks. She laughs. The real kind, the kind that comes from the chest without asking permission, without being constructed for anyone, the kind of laugh that reminds her she is capable of it. No, baby. She shakes her head even though he can't see it, and something better. DeAndre is quiet again. She imagines him in his dorm room, the lamp on the desk, his engineering textbooks in the pile she knows from the photographs he sends her occasionally, always slightly out of frame, like he's not sure she needs to see how many there are. And are you going to do it, he asks. She looks at the window, and the Atlanta evening outside, and doing what Atlanta evenings do, gradual, warm, and unhurried. And the kind of evening that doesn't announce itself. Yeah, she says, I think I am. Good, DeAndre says. Just that. Good. And she stays on the phone with him for another 20 minutes, talking about the group project. and a different professor and a dining hall that has inexplicably stopped serving the one thing he liked on Wednesdays, and can she believe that? And she listens to all of it. She asks the right questions, and she stores the details the way she has always stored details about him carefully and completely, and with the attention of someone who understands that the small things are the record, and that the accumulation of small things is what a life is made of. And she doesn't tell him about Calvin's photograph in Arthur's office. She'll tell him that later. When she stood in front of the class for the first time and knows what it felt like, and she wants to give him the real version, not the anticipated one. Calvin would have understood that distinction. She says goodnight. She sits on the edge of the bed for a little while after, and then she goes to the kitchen table and opens her notes one more time, not because she needs to study anymore, but because the habit of it is there, and the table and the lamp and the quiet feel like the right company for this particular evening. And she closes the notebook after a few minutes. She goes to sleep. Monday morning, 7:49 a.m. Maya Reeves is standing at the edge of the mat at Ironside MMA. She is wearing clean training clothes and, not new, she has not gone out and bought new clothes for this, because that would be performing something, and she has spent enough of her life in the vicinity of performance to know when she's doing it and to choose not to. And the clothes are clean and pressed, and they are hers, and from before, and from the years of before, and kept in a box in the back of the closet for the 6 years since she last had occasion to wear them. And they fit. That surprised her, Saturday morning when she tried them. She expected them not to, and she expected 6 years and a different life to have changed the dimensions enough that the clothes wouldn't fit and she'd have to buy something. And the whole thing would start with a small defeat, but they fit, and differently than before. And maybe the body she has now is not the body she had at 24, and it's been through different things. And it carries different weight in different places, but they fit. And she has a clipboard. She doesn't particularly need a clipboard. She knows what she's doing this morning, and it's in her head completely, and she doesn't need to refer to notes. But her hands are not entirely steady right now, and the clipboard gives them something to do, and something to hold, and something to be responsible for, and which is a function she understands well. And the mat under her feet is the same mat she has been mopping for 8 months. She knows this mat. And she knows where the seams are, and where the surface is slightly worn, and where the edge lifts just a fraction on the far left corner, because the adhesive has been losing its argument with the floor for about 3 months. And she knows this mat the way you know a place you have been responsible for, not romantically, not with sentiment, but completely. And the way knowledge lives in your feet as much as your head. It is completely familiar. It is completely different. She thinks about Calvin, and she thinks about the first Saturday morning at Steelplex, when she arrived at 6:45 because he said 7, and she has always been early for things that matter. And she thinks about the back room with the folding divider and the strip of rubber flooring, and the way Calvin looked at her across the distance of it, not evaluating, and not deciding, and just looking. And the way a man looks at something he has already recognized and is simply confirming. And she thinks about the mirror, about standing in front of it that first time while he stood behind her and spoke about her body, what it already knew, what it was already built for, the capacity that was already present and simply waiting to be acknowledged and used. And she wishes he could see this room. Not in the way that grief makes you wish for things, not with the ache of impossibility. More in the way that you wish someone could see something good, and because he would have appreciated it, because he earned the right to see it, whatever the arithmetic of the world decided about whether he got to. She lets that sit for a moment, then she lets it go. The door opens at 8 o'clock exactly. 8 women walk in, and they come in 2s and 3s, and the way people enter an unfamiliar space when they're not sure of the protocol, slightly cautious, and slightly performative in their casualness, and each person calibrating how much uncertainty to show. And they range in age from 20 to 41, as Arthur described. They have different bodies and different ways of being in them, different amounts of ease, different histories written in how they hold their shoulders. They look at Maya. She looks at them, and they line up, roughly, because lining up is the thing you do when you're new somewhere and waiting for instruction. It's not a requirement, she said. It's the thing people do when they don't know yet. that they have other options, and Raina Foster is near the end of the line. 22 years old. She's wearing a gray hoodie, slightly too large, the kind that suggests it was purchased for comfort rather than appearance. And her shoulders carry a particular quality, not quite hunched, not dramatically closed off, but pulled in, made smaller than they are, and the posture of someone who has learned in small increments over the years to take up less space than she's entitled to, and has stopped noticing she's doing it, and her eyes move around the room, cataloging, assessing. They land on Maya for a moment and then move away. Maya knows that look. She knows it the way she knows the calluses on her own hands, and she wore that look at 17 standing in the door of Steelplex, wanting the thing in the room so badly, she was already afraid of how much she wanted it. She wore it for 3 sessions before Calvin made her stand in front of the mirror and told her what he saw, and she knows exactly what to do with that look. Okay, Maya says, not loud, just enough to fill the room evenly, the voice of someone who has been in enough rooms to know how to address all of them without having to project. The women settle. My name is Maya. Not Coach Maya, not Ms. and Reeves. Just Maya for now. She looks at the group, not scanning, actually looking, making contact with each face briefly. Before we do anything else, I want to ask you something. And she pauses. Lets the room settle into genuine quiet, the real kind, not just the absence of noise. What do you think you can't do? Nobody speaks. Don't answer out loud. Don't answer to me. Just let it sit. She looks at them. And whatever came into your head just now, that's where we start. At the end of the line, Raina Foster looks up. Not at the ceiling. Not at the middle distance. Up. The specific direction of someone who just heard something, reached them in a place they weren't prepared to be reached. And her chin comes up. Not dramatically, 1 degree, maybe 2. The small physical adjustment of a person whose interior posture has just shifted. Maya sees it, and she sees it the way she sees everything in a room completely, without appearing to look, without making the person aware they've been seen. Because the moment you make someone aware you've noticed their vulnerability, they put it away. She moves on, and she takes them through the first drill, not a fighting drill, and a movement drill. Just movement, how to move. How to feel the floor under your feet and understand your own weight. How to shift from stillness into intention without announcing either one. And how to occupy the space you actually have without either shrinking from it or performing it. She doesn't explain the purpose before they do it. Calvin taught her that. The body understands before the mind does. You do the thing first. Then you understand what the thing was. And she watches them. And she watches the woman in the 3rd position, who arrived certain she would be the least capable person in the room, and discovers, and midway through the 2nd drill, and that this is not true, and the small recalibration that happens in a person when that particular fear is disproved. And she watches the woman near the back, who has been in a gym before, and carries that fact as a slight protective distance, and gradually, over the course of 20 minutes, lets the distance close, because the room doesn't require it. And she watches the 41-year-old in the front, who moves with a confidence that has nothing to do with technique and everything to do with having been alive for 41 years and simply knowing certain things about herself. She watches Raina. Raina moves carefully, precisely, and, like someone who is trying very hard not to do anything wrong, which is a different thing from trying very hard to do something right, and the difference matters. Doing something right means your attention is on the thing, and doing nothing wrong means your attention is on the watching. Maya adjusts. She doesn't single Raina out. She doesn't make her the recipient of special instruction that marks her as struggling, and she adjusts the way she addresses the whole group, a slight shift in how she demonstrates, a different angle on the instruction, a change in where the emphasis lands, and watches Raina's body receive the adjustment without Raina knowing it was aimed at her. And 15 minutes in, Raina stops moving carefully, and she just moves. It's small. It's a single drill, a single posture, a single moment of her body, doing what it was asked without the editorial layer of self-consciousness running alongside. It lasts maybe 8 seconds, but Maya sees it, and she knows what it is, and she felt it herself once, and in a back room in Columbus, and standing in front of a mirror while a man who loved his work and believed in people talked to her about what was already in her. And the moment someone stops being a spectator in their own body, 8 seconds, it will last longer next week. She calls time at 9 o'clock. The room loosens into the easy movement of people gathering their things, the low sounds of a group transitioning back to the outside world. And there is a quality in it, not just relief that the session is done, but something more active than that. Something that belongs to people who have done something and know it. And the woman from the front, the 41-year-old, pauses near Maya on her way out. "Same time next week?" she asks. "Same time next week," Maya says. She nods. From the back follows. Then two more. Then three. Then it is just Raina. She has her bag, and she's heading for the door. And she passes Maya, and she slows, and she stops. And for a moment she does not turn around, and just stands with her back to the room. And then Maya waits without pushing, and without filling the space. And Raina turns. She doesn't quite look at Maya directly. She looks at a point just beside her, the specific angle of someone something to say and hasn't finished deciding to say it. "Same time next week?" she asks. Her voice is quiet, not small quiet, and the difference is internal. Small comes from uncertainty. Quiet comes from someone who has decided. Maya looks at her. She sees Raina, and not the hoodie, not the pulled-in shoulders, not the cataloging eyes that have spent 22 years assessing whether a room has space for her. And she sees the woman underneath all of that. The one who walked in this morning and stood at the end of a line and let herself want something. "Same time next week," Maya says. Raina nods. This small, serious nod. And the nod of someone who has received confirmation of something they needed to have confirmed. Not validated from the outside, confirmed. The way a thing you already suspected becomes real when the evidence arrives. She walks out. The door swings closed behind her, and Maya stands in the middle of the mat. The room is quiet. The women have all gone. The mat is the same mat it has been for 8 months. The lights are the same lights. And the smell is the same smell, rubber and cleaning solution, and the faint residual warmth of bodies that have been working. Completely familiar. She is standing in it differently than she has stood in it for 8 months. She doesn't analyze this. She just stands in it. And the supply closet door is slightly open from where she came in at 7:45. She can see the edge of the mop handle from here. The top of the handle leaning against the back wall in its usual place. She has not thrown it out. She's thought about it, and more than once, across the 4 weeks of studying, and the week of waiting, and the Friday of signing, and the weekend of telling DeAndre, and the Sunday evening of sitting at the kitchen table with the notebook closed. And she has thought about whether getting rid of the mop would mean something, whether it would be the right gesture for the transition. She decided it wouldn't, not because the mop needs to stay. It doesn't, and the building will assign the work to someone else, and the someone else will have their own mop, and this one can go. But the woman who held it, who came in at 7:15 every Thursday for 8 months, and did the work completely, and without complaint, and without performing the not complaining either, and who kept her hands quiet and her mouth quiet, and her whole enormous interior quiet in this room, while people looked through her and past her, and occasionally used her as a prop in their own stories. That woman deserves something, and not a monument, not even a ceremony. Just the acknowledgement that she existed, that she held things, and that she kept going when the architecture of her life cracked down the middle, and then cracked again. And there was a period of years where it was genuinely unclear what, if anything, was going to hold, and that she got up the next morning anyway, and the morning after that, and all the mornings stacked up into weeks and months and years, until she was standing on this mat, in clean training clothes, with a clipboard in her slightly unsteady hands, and 8 women filing in through the door. And that woman deserves to not be forgotten. Even by Maya, especially by Maya, the door opens. Deandra fills the doorway, 19 years old, and tall in the way that still occasionally catches her. She'll look up at her son and experience a brief vertigo at the gap between the weight of him in her memory and the particular heft of a newborn, and the specific heaviness of a small person held against a chest in a hospital room in the early morning, and the actual person standing in front of her now, and 6 feet of him. The shoulders that come from her side of the family, Calvin's build skipping a generation, and his face that is its own face, and nobody else's, and yet in certain angles, and in certain lights, and in a particular set of the jaw when he's thinking something through, and she sees her uncle and has to let a breath go sideways before she can speak, and he's got his backpack on one shoulder, his campus hoodie, He looks like exactly what he is, a 19-year-old who has somewhere to be and has made a detour first because someone told him it might be worth it. And he looks into the gym. He takes it in the way he takes things in quietly, completely, without rushing to a response. She raised him to do that, to look at a thing before you speak about it. It was one of the first lessons, and it took the longest to stick, and now it's his. And he looks at the mat, the equipment on the walls, the ceiling with its fluorescent lights, the hallway visible through the interior window, the photograph at the end of it, the man in the center with the broad shoulders, and he looks at his mother standing in the middle of it all, in training clothes, with a clipboard. "Mom," he says. She looks at him. Something moves through her that doesn't have a clean name. And not pride exactly. Pride implies surprise, implies that the outcome was uncertain, and she never let herself believe the outcome was uncertain even on the days when certainty was hard to find. Not relief exactly either, more like arrival, and the specific feeling of a thing that has been in motion for a long time coming to rest in the right place. And, are you the coach now? And there it is. 23 years of her life in a question asked by the person who is the most important reason for all of it. The person she got up for on the mornings she didn't want to get up. The person she made the plan for, kept the plan for, rebuilt the plan around every time the original version stopped working. And the person she told, and on all the ordinary evenings of his ordinary growing up, and that what she was doing was going somewhere. And that the shape of their life was not a destination, but a direction. And that direction mattered more than position. And DeAndre, 19 years old, standing in a doorway in Atlanta on a Monday morning, asking his mother a question she has been answering with her whole life for 6 years and longer. Maya looks at the mat under her feet, at the lights she's been mopping under for 8 months, at the hallway where the photograph hangs, and the man at the center of it, and 22 years old and already decided, and already building. And already standing in whatever space he occupied like the floor was going to hold him, and at the supply closet door slightly open, the mop handle visible in the gap, at her son. "Yeah, babies," she says. Her voice is quiet, real, the kind of quiet that doesn't need anything added to it. "I think I am." DeAndre looks at her for a moment. Then he nods, the same way she nods, and she has watched him pick up her habits over 19 years, the way he holds a cup, the way he approaches a problem from the side rather than head on, the way he goes quiet when something matters. And he doesn't know he does any of it. She has never told him. Some things you carry from people without knowing you've picked them up. He nods the way she nods. Once. Settled. "Okay," he says. She looks at him, and she looks at her son standing in the doorway of a gym in Atlanta with his backpack on one shoulder and the morning light coming in around him. And then she thinks about Calvin, and who will never stand in this doorway, and who never got to meet this boy, and who built a thing from nothing, and taught her what building from nothing looks like, so that when it became necessary, and she already knew how, and the Calvin-shaped gap in the room, always there, never smaller. She has learned to stand in the same space as the gap without needing it to be filled. That is its own kind of strength. "Come in," she says. "I'll show you the place." DeAndre shoulders his bag and steps over the threshold, and the door swings open wide.